So, hey, welcome to this video, first of all. So today I want to talk a bit about the different types of reactions that histamine can have in the body, because depending on the location of where the histamine is, it can have a different set of symptoms. So you could have gut histamine, you could have histamine in the periphery by it entering the blood, and then you could have histamine in your brain. So quickly, histamine in the gut gets there via your diet. So say you eat a high histamine food, and leftovers are often high histamine, so it's something to maybe watch out for. The histamine gets into your gut, and you need the DAO enzyme to clear it out of your gut. DAO could be supplemented when you feel like you're not making enough DAO yourself, because, for example, you've got some gut inflammation going on. And the symptoms one might have when the histamine is high in the gut are things like typical gut symptoms, right? Gas, bloating, diarrhea perhaps. I've heard something about acid reflux as well. So really localized in the gut, basically. That's something to remember, perhaps to take away. The next step, when this gut histamine is not being cleared correctly, is that the histamine builds up in the gut and then spills over into the periphery and basically enters the blood. So it can be transported anywhere in the body. And it can also, therefore, it can give a variety of symptoms depending on where the histamine is at. Right? So it could give you, for example, very typical like skin type symptoms, right? Where you get like a flush or like a rash, dry skin, stuff like that. To get a full list of the different types of symptoms histamine can have, I would recommend looking at a histamine map. So just Google histamine map, and you can. Honestly, it's a massive amount of different symptoms that histamine can have, and it was very interesting to me the first time seeing something like this, right? Because, and I think it's also the reason that a lot of practitioners, and I'm talking about functional practitioners, are trying to target histamine so readily. This histamine in the periphery will, however, not enter the brain because of the blood-brain barrier, the protective layer around the brain. So for brain histamine to occur, and brain histamine is the main symptom I usually have, right? So that would be wiredness, there will be a bit of anxiousness, anxiety, there will be maybe some trouble sleeping, right? Some stress, brain fog, for example. And this histamine gets in the brain because of mast cells releasing histamine. So mast cells in the brain releasing the histamine. So for example, right, when you're looking at high histamine foods, you've often got two categories. You've got the category of high histamine foods, leftovers, fermented foods, and so on. And then you've got the category of histamine liberators. And the histamine liberator is usually a mast cell activator, which is something I personally react to a lot. Also just unfiltered types of drinks when I'm at a restaurant, or just foods that I usually do not eat. It's like when I'm also in a restaurant or something like that, I can just feel, boom, mast cells are activated, anxiety creeping up, I'm getting some brain fog, kind of ruining the experience, right? And so that's why I'm kind of cautious nowadays, just at like looking at what I'm eating, limiting what I'm drinking, and so on and so on. Brain histamine is cleared via different mechanisms. For example, you would first need HNMT and then MAO-B. And then it turns into a different byproduct, an aldehyde form, that then also needs to be cleared. I will speak about the clearing of brain histamine a lot more in the protocol that I'm releasing soon. But just know that if you have got brain histamine, it's much more important to perhaps look at why it is there in the first place. What is creating this brain histamine, right? What's the reason for it? And often, like in my case, and in other people's cases, it seems to be that it's something mast cell related, and that there is something lowering the activation threshold of the mast cells, which could be long-term oxidative stress, because long-term oxidative stress actually oxidizes a compound that's on the mast cell that then lowers the activation threshold. This is something so one of the first steps would be to find out why you're creating a reactive oxygen species in the body, causing oxidative stress, lowering this activation threshold. Which is, honestly, that's kind of a hard thing. I'll try and help you out with that in the protocol. For now, when you do have problems with brain histamine, and I'm talking when it's getting kind of severe, a good histamine blocker seems to help a lot, especially people that are having sleep problems and such. And I know sleep problems are just one of the worst things when you need to get out of bed in the morning, for work, and you're just constantly waking up or just not even able to go to sleep. Yeah, so perhaps look into a histamine blocker. There's different types, H1, H2, based on the histamine receptor, and then different generations of histamine blockers. I'll do a whole different video on histamine blockers in the future, because I need to dig into it myself a little bit more for the protocol and such, just because I need to choose one or two good forms readily available for people all over the world. But yeah, I just wanted to give you a bit of information on histamine and the different types of symptoms it could cause, because it was really eye-opening to me the first time I saw this histamine map and just the enormous amount of different symptoms it could cause.